Last week, there was a school shooting in Nashville, and multiple North Country school districts were placed on lockdown due to false reports of school shootings. It doesn't appear you've commented on either of those, at least on social media. Will the House Republican majority move to restrict access to combat-grade weapons like AR-15s that were used in the Nashville shooting and many others?
I have made my position very, very clear. First of all, I think it's important to note that all of America mourns for the horrific loss, and as a mom in particular of a young child, I grieve for those families, for those parents. I think we need to make sure that we get all the facts and all the investigation, and I urge the media to do the same as well. One of the ways that I think we can improve school safety is school resource officers, and in this case, this school did not have a school resource officer, and we need to make sure that we're providing financial support, and we do that through grant programs. That's something that the House Republicans have led on. I also think that we clearly need to do more for the significant mental health crisis that we are facing in this country. But the knee-jerk response to ban guns is unacceptable and it's overly political. Let's get all the facts first and let's work to solve this. And I think it's important to note, Kara, that if you look back in the last Republican majority, we passed Fix NICS, which was the most significant update to information sharing in the background check system. That was Republican-led in a Republican majority, signed into law by a Republican president. So those are my positions, and we grieve for those families.
Is anything forthcoming in the immediate
And one other important aspect that you asked, the calls to the schools locally. Those need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. To have individuals try to take advantage of this really uncertain time, it is horrible, and any type of resources that are needed by law enforcement to track down who those callers are, we fully support that to make sure they're prosecuted fully.
Will the majority be putting forth any sort of package in the coming weeks, months?
I think you will see increased support for mental health. You'll also see increased support for school resource officers, and also making sure that as the investigation goes forward and we learn all of the facts about the horrible tragedy in Nashville, that we address that. And I think mental health is going to be an important part of that, as well as school resource officers.
And obviously the question of the day is Donald Trump. Are you going to be in New York City while the indictment is going on, and what's your reaction beyond that?
I'm not going to be in New York City. I'm right here in Plattsburgh, Pat. Happy to be here for the Adirondack line. I've been very clear. This is a political witch hunt. This was a non-case that was passed on by the Department of Justice, by the U.S. attorneys, and Alvin Bragg ran on prosecuting Donald Trump. This is political. It's about the individual, not about the case. And I think as more and more facts are out there, people are going to see that this is a case that is just a political prosecution. We also have an important role because federal dollars were utilized in this prosecution. There were also two individuals that worked in the Manhattan DA's office that ended up leaving and wrote a book about the need to take on politically Donald Trump. So I think it's political prosecution that Trump has been facing, frankly, since 2016, and I think Alvin Bragg should be held accountable, and he will be held accountable, and he should testify under oath before Congress.
Does this worry you about some of the other cases, like in Georgia, that there could be indictments in those cases at all?
Pat, we get asked questions going back to 2016, and there have been no crimes committed. This has been a politicization and the weaponization, whether it's of federal agencies or, in this case, a very far-left Manhattan district attorney who has a crime crisis in New York City and refuses to prosecute the crimes that are happening in New York City, very, very serious felonies, and has taken felonies down to misdemeanors. In this case, there is no crime. It is a very weak case, according to the Department of Justice attorneys who passed upon it. So, I think it's just more of the weaponization against President Trump just because of his political beliefs.
You're concerned about the northern border and seeing the increase in the number of migrants who are crossing from Canada into the U.S.
This is another issue that for 2 years I've really been trying to shed a spotlight on, that the staffing shifts from the northern border to the southern border of border personnel, of CBP officers, that had a significant impact not only on those families but also having the resources we need here. In the past year, there's been an 846% increase in the Swanton sector. That's much of my district, and that's a big increase. So while it's not the sheer numbers that we're seeing nearly as the southern border, it's still a significant percentage uptick here. So we need to make sure that we have adequate staffing, as well as any technology that's needed on the unique geography and topography of the northern border. We started the Northern Border Security Caucus to focus on this, because so much is focused on the southern border. We need to make sure we have the resources here.
And CBP is saying it's going to move 25 agents to the northern border?
Well, we hope, and I think that's the bare minimum. I think we need to increase that. Border Patrol is another issue. They have been transferred over and over again. When we spotlighted that, then they started allowing them to do online coverage of the southern border, but the Border Patrol stayed up here. But that doesn't mean that our Border Patrol agents are focused on the Swanton sector here, and it's a huge geography to cover with, a lot of land, a lot of areas between the ports of entry that make it challenging. So increased numbers is important for the northern border and for Border Patrol in general. I mean, we need to get those numbers up. It is far lower than what we need on both borders.